Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you're very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. Earlier this month, I was incredibly privileged to get the chance to go to the Museums Association conference in Belfast. My lovely friend and colleague Manasi was exhibiting there her project HistorySpeak as part of the Festival of Change. HistorySpeak looks at the way in which national narratives of history are shaped and then disseminated as part of secondary school education programmes. In this video, we're going to be laying out just what we got up to, the questions that we asked and answered, and those that we are still looking into. I do hope you enjoy what we've got on offer for you.
Hi Katrina's audience, I'm one of you. I love your channel.
Oh, thanks.
So happy to be on it. So my name is Manasi and my project HistorySpeak got selected for the Festival of Change at the Museums Association conference in Belfast 2018. That's a lot of information.
Yes.
Yes. So the Museums Association conference is an annual conference that takes place anywhere in the UK, and it can be anywhere in the UK. And it's basically a conference where museum professionals from all over the country come together, discuss ideas, and you get to hear a lot of amazing speakers. What the project is that it compares historical discourse as it is taught in secondary schools, and I'm comparing history textbooks from India and from UK. And how we're doing it, I don't know. Yeah, you can see this, right?
Yes, yeah. You can. So you can see this upside down. So what Nancy's done is amazingly. What are these books called? Because this is so you can see it's like a kind of concertina book. Is that what it's called?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's also called an accordion book or a concertina book. And it's really cool because it's basically looks like it's one continuous piece of paper. And what I've done here is that I have photocopied and then cut and pasted parts of the British textbook and the Indian textbook. And they are talking about the same historical period or have overlapping themes or characters. So once we open it out, you can actually show an entire length.
Yeah.
Or like a couple of paragraphs like this. And then you can also display it straight like this. So you can actually read the book as a display.
And this topic is, so the topic that is the focus of these books currently is actually, I suppose, from the English angle, the British Empire. And I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, from the Indian angle, it is the
freedom
from the British Empire, exactly. Getting out under the yoke.
Yeah.
And what was really interesting to me about this project is firstly getting to work with you on it, but also the way in which we present our history, the way in which we shape that. It shapes not only how we understand our past, but how we understand our present, and ultimately how we're going to shape our futures.
Absolutely.
And what I found really fascinating is that the textbook from the UK is pretty new into the curriculum. What year was it again?
So this textbook that I'm using was published in 2016. I started this project in 2014, and at the time there was no textbook for this topic. So this is a GCSE subject. It's actually, so history in GCSE is an optional subject. And the way the curriculum is divided is that you can choose certain themes that you want to study. So this, which is the history of migration into Britain and empire, is an optional topic within an optional subject. There was no textbook for this option until 2016. So when I started this project in 2014, I just found like a PDF version online that I had to print
Oh, wow.
off. Yeah. Whereas the Indian textbook, if you look at the timeline and the emphasis, it's all based on this period. So it was startling to me that this information wasn't being addressed in 20th century history, which is what the GCSEs cover anyway, and which was actually the primary focus of the Indian textbook. Now, the Indian textbook is for a particular curriculum. It's for the ICSEs, and history is a compulsory subject. So one of the things that was interesting to me is that all Indian kids are learning this, and only some British children are learning this.
And for me, that was the first question I asked, is what are the demographics of the schools that are picking up this particular exam body and this particular, I suppose, syllabus within that exam body's curriculum? But then for that, of course, we need to look at catchment areas, we need to look at demographics of schools, and that's a whole wider question.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this textbook is a great start. It's a really good textbook, so I want to just put that out there. The reason we're investigating the language is that the language becomes rhetoric. You know?
Yes.
We have a lot of things that we say so casually, and one of the sources that we get all this information, or we get these phrases in our head that we just repeat without thinking, is history textbooks. Because that's what you learn when you're 16, when you actually don't really care about it, but it becomes part of your vocabulary, it becomes part of the way you speak about subjects and your past and your future and your identity. So to really investigate this language and looking at the same topic from another point of view, and understanding that what you identify with, someone else talks about it using completely different vocabulary, and that changes your position. That is something that I'm quite interested in.
Yeah.
And so this book is a really great starting point, and I'm sure they're going to do a lot of, hopefully they will do a lot more work in identifying where it's being used and how it's being taken up. So also, I mean, if we get good feedback from this, and if we get good material from this, good insights from this, it might actually help develop this book further. Because we are going to be critical about the language that is used.
Yeah. And we can also potentially start doing some of that demographic work and putting it on the wider HistorySpeak platform. The conference starts tomorrow.
Yes.
We are hoping to have some really invigorating conversations about these two texts. It's positioned in this way so people can write on it. I'm super excited. So 2 days of excellent conversations, and we're going to come back and feedback every evening.
Absolutely. And we're going to be asking our audience a lot of difficult questions.
Yes. Hopefully they stick around. Okay, so that's all for us for tonight. It's very late. We have had a very busy day setting up the exhibition, which you will see beforehand in a speeded up version because it took many hours. But we're very happy with it, particularly our confetti
It's looking
stickers.
very cool.
And we'll feedback on what we learn. And also we'll probably put stuff up on the Instagram. There's a HistorySpeak Instagram and there's our Instagram as well. All that's going to be linked so you can catch up with what we got up to. So see you tomorrow night.
Okay. So basically what we've done is we've taken history textbooks from India and from the UK, and we've made this book out of it, which is just like a cut-paste job. And what we'd like you to do now is just read and observe and tell us what you think. And you can feel free to make notes, and you can use a highlighter, and it's basically just if you observe what characters are in the foreground, what events are in the foreground, what events are in the background. And let's see where we go with that. Would you like to sit here? This might be better, actually.
So when I mark this up, the next person that comes, will they see it marked up?
So it becomes like much wider conversation. Hopefully with the media that we're going to create here, it then becomes something that's become an online, ongoing conversation.
Nice, okay. Very interesting. Okay. Alright, I'll write, this is much more industrial. I can write on this, right?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. Yeah. I think you pointed this out, but the doing business versus capitalizing.
Yeah. I have that because there's also that sense I think it's what you were talking about before, in the sense of doing business, it is social, it has to be transactional and interpersonal.
Yeah.
Whereas this is kind of commodity production.
Yeah. It's much more. I mean, there is a line about British traders making profit and the death knell for the age-old Indian cottage industries, but this one's talking much more about buying power and, aristocracy and.
So which book do you think?
Oh gosh.
Just from
I don't really know, to be honest. Like, I feel like I'm going to get it wrong, but I think that one's more British. Is that the British one or is that the Indian one? Is it?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I think broadly speaking, they pretty much tell the same story,
Sure.
but it's the spin on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
That you put in somebody's head at 15 or 16.
Yeah.
Travels with them through their lives. How does
Yeah.
that affect how they shape their futures?
Yeah.
You can like look at the
Yeah,
other pages
yeah.
as well. I mean,
I was
you can go
yeah.
over
I'm also like I'm just now that I know this is the English one. This line about British were suspicious of them and being afraid they would bring the Oriental lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting.
It's also would be interested in the use of language, so the kind of adjectives that are used, the
Yeah.
emotions that are used. Because I mean, history is supposed to be a document of fact,
Yeah.
but how do you know that someone felt something?
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's those kind of if you come across that kind of language,
Yeah.
then it's worth investigating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your comment about adjectives and stuff. You know, very poorly governed, that kind of thing.
You can just highlight them.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a justification.
Yeah, yeah. And like took advantage of this chaos, like
Yeah.
to become enormously wealthy, right? Like they didn't, it wasn't their fault it was chaotic, right? It was like, oh look, these people can't govern themselves, so we're gonna just come in and take over it.
So I think not qualifying what they mean by chaos.
Yeah, yeah. What does that actually look like?
Not British. Is that what chaos means?
Oh god, I'm just so excited. Like as a like in terms of like how it's written, I think it's really interesting that they spend all this time talking about these guys who took advantage, and then they say they were very rare, right? Like use the middlemen, and then say they were very rare. So I think that's interesting. Well, and then like sort of like fighting for local dominance, often allied Europeans to get the upper hand of it. So it's sort of saying like, well, they were subjugating themselves in a way.
So
Were these from the same book?
yeah, these are from the same.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say the writing is, and this was the. Yeah. Yeah, it was a very different. The British were bent upon conquering the whole of India. They waged wars. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty stark, isn't it?
In contrast to the poorly governed took advantage of this chaos.
Yeah. I mean, talk about like a bit of a blame game going on here, right? Like, I'm gonna just draw a little arrow. I feel like that. That's a little different.
So I mean, if we just look at this as because one of the notions of this project is that these are books of propaganda.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. Every country does it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like what kind of ideology are they trying to instill in people reading this book? So what kind of ideology do you think this book is trying to instill in the readers and the future citizens and voters?
Well, it's definitely like if the British had left us alone, we would have been fine. We would have had this, like utopic society in a way, right? And they came in and ruined everything. And this one's much more kind of like we went in, saw chaos, and everything was falling apart, so we just stepped in and took advantage of it.
Yeah.
So
because we hold down the fort.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if we leave the EU, we hold down the fort.
Yeah. That's really, really interesting.
We are back. There should have been some cool inserted stuff from today, but this is the end of the first day of us being at the Museums Association conference with HistorySpeak, and I'm shattered.
I'm so tired.
We've spent a lot of the day talking to incredibly engaged, interesting people who brought up points that we hadn't considered.
It was amazing, yes. I mean, just showing that text to people who come from different backgrounds, different jobs, different places, and the words that they picked up on was incredible. And in some cases, some people just got which paragraph came from which textbook.
Yep.
And in some cases, they got it completely wrong.
Yeah.
And then once you told them which textbook it came from, their perception of that word changed. So that was quite incredible.
Yeah.
So that whole idea of challenging preconceived notions, I think it really worked.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but what was like pleasant to have happen was how people who kind of seemingly came up to us not knowing what we were doing, and they kind of went, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, well, if somebody's come up, if they don't know what's going on, they might want to walk away. And the number of people who, when we explained what was happening, wanted to get involved. Hardly anybody wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised about that. But at the same time, it's quite rewarding to know that something that you think is cool, you can be in a room of strangers and they also think it's cool.
Exactly. I mean, I was apprehensive, you know this.
Yeah.
Because history is a nerdy subject and it's text heavy, and the book that we created is, we've removed the pictures from it. So it is only text, it is black and white. Yeah, okay, we have like cool neon and, you know, like the markers and everything, but it does involve a lot of reading. And I was really scared that it's going to be too dry or academic, but I think we had the right audience for this.
Yeah, but I think also what was really cool is that people would engage with the text for a period of time, but then what we also got, and hopefully it came up in the video we were recording, is when they step back from the text and the text becomes a jumping off point to talk about empire, yes,
exactly,
but also their own personal experiences of race and colonialism and those identities within a British context or an American context or an Australian context. And what was incredible about this as a moment is how it seems to be empowering people to share their own narratives and quite cathartically share their own narratives. And that is something that I could not have foreseen, that people would be, when we told them they were being recorded, that people would be so willing to participate not only in the text, but then also to kind of open up.
And have a conversation.
Yeah, but about stuff that's tough, like not easy topics, things that are contentious and painful.
Difficult to talk about.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of that had to do with the idea of it being text-based, I think, because most of the times you don't know the vocabulary to speak about these things, or you don't have that vocabulary, or you're scared that you might say something that's offensive or something that is incorrect and doesn't reflect the person you are, so you feel like it's just better not to say anything. But in this case, because the text is laid out and you are critiquing the text and you are talking about how that text is speaking about something, in a way you have a jumping off point in terms of the vocabulary you can use to talk about the issue, the terminology you can use to talk about the issue. You can talk about why that terminology works, why it's problematic, what it's actually conveying. So I think it's like you said, I absolutely agree that it was a great jumping off point for a lot of discussions, and I think it also empowered them with words, with sentences, with thoughts that they didn't just have to accept, they could critique or accept.
Yeah.
Or ignore.
Yeah. And actually I think in doing this, what that book provides is not just jumping off point, but a safe space.
That too, yeah.
And that's amazing. Yeah. And I always knew that this project was necessary and useful, but I didn't realise, I knew it could change things, but I didn't realise quite how much it could be an agent for social change within our age group.
Yeah.
Like, I very much thought that working on this was going to be about ensuring that future generations have access to a curriculum that is whole and complete and necessary and politically engaged, all of those amazing things. What surprised me pleasantly was just how much people of our age and older, people who are a long time out of secondary school, how necessary and healing and purposeful this conversation is for them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's been an absolute privilege to work with you, but also being involved in those conversations today, I was humbled by the insight and the emotion and the points of view that were just, it was people to be that honest, they're really trusting you.
Yeah.
And it's a real gift to be given that. And and as I said, it's an incredible privilege to be involved. Yeah. It was brilliant.
I mean, going ahead from what you said about safe space, I can actually see it now, because what happened with a lot of people who couldn't guess the right textbook. So they would they would think the Indian textbook is actually the British textbook. And they would critique that textbook in a way that they possibly wouldn't have critiqued it had they known that it was an Indian textbook.
Yeah.
So just anonymizing that text and removing it from that context and telling them, say whatever you want about this.
Yes.
So I think that created that safe space that you're talking about in a way that they felt that they could. And that's really important because there's so much censorship about how we talk about these issues. And I think you do need to say 10 wrong things before you figure out that one right thing to say. And if you keep censoring yourself, how are you going to come up with that?
It has potentials outside of this event, and potentials as a workshop that isn't just about getting the collection together, the physical and digital collection. Like, the collection is a teaching aid, and the conversations that we can facilitate through that is applicable, I think, in a number of ways.
Absolutely.
I think it's applicable potentially in kind of when we talk about diversity and decolonisation, which people are interested in. This is potentially something that we can give as an offer to institutions and industries.
So I agree. I think that this project works on or needs to be worked on two levels. So one is trying to develop the collection, which I very much want to do.
Yeah.
Because we have two perspectives right now. We need multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
So to balance out even balance out all narratives if possible, give a counter narrative. And also the workshop format.
Yeah.
Because I think also the insights that we got from this diverse set of people who we interacted with today has been completely different than your reading and my reading of the text. Yeah. I mean, there were some things that you noticed that I didn't notice and vice versa, but they came up with stuff that neither of us had noticed.
No, exactly.
And we read both texts and analyzed them. So there's a lot to be gained from interacting with different people and seeing how they react to words and terminology.
Yeah. Somebody who culturally comes from a similar background to you, but who identifies as British, reads the text in a completely different way.
Absolutely.
And of course they would.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that actually this isn't about reading through your nation. This is about reading through your individual, specialised, peculiar, magical unicorn of an identity that is yours and yours alone.
And that you define. And
I'm really excited for tomorrow to see what other great conversations we get into. I'm also really excited to sit down after this and think about where does this format work to foster the kinds of conversations that adult humans living in an increasingly divided world should and need to be having. How can we do it?
It's a good question, and
we'll figure it out.
We'll hopefully figure it out.
I love what you said, that you have to say things 10 ways the wrong way before you find one way of saying it the right way. And I think that if we give ourselves that freedom and liberty and we're kind to ourselves, we can find the right way. We might misstep and we might do the wrong thing, but I think that what we have here is powerful.
That's good.
Okay, so words that jumped out at me when I read this one.
What were your impressions?
I realised how little I knew about Curzon. I realised how little Kedleston Hall, one of the properties that I don't work closely with, but I work with, that I visited recently, where his Eastern collection is housed.
Eastern collection.
Yeah, so
That's what it's called.
That's what it's called, the Eastern Museum.
Okay.
It was called the Indian Museum, but it contains objects from Asia generally that he collected, I think, when he was Viceroy. It's also got loads of photographs. It's got hunting trophies.
And what was the impression of him as a man over there versus what you've read in the books?
Actually, I read very little about Britain's foreign policy at that time and Curzon's role in it. So it doesn't surprise me, but to see that he officially wanted to break India really, or Indian rule, wanted to curtail people's ability in India. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, of course, they were the colonial masters, but at the same time to collect these beautiful objects and put them in a case, it kind of sickens me.
Could you tell which, I'll give you a clue, that 2 of these paragraphs are from the British textbook and 2 are from the Indian. Is it obvious to you which are from which?
No, actually. So I thought this was from the Indian textbook. Yeah, I would say I thought these 2 were from Indian textbooks and these 2 were from British.
Okay, so this is from India and this is from India. And these 2 are from British textbook. So what's interesting is also that the British textbook actually gives a background to who he was.
Yeah.
But also they own the fact that he was what his policies were in that sense. They don't paint him in a very benign light.
No, they don't. No.
So they're quite clear.
Yeah, it made me want to revisit his home and think about how the National Trust does or doesn't talk about him. So at the moment they have an exhibition about his anti-suffrage campaigns.
Wow.
So what a guy. But actually no, actually I shouldn't say that. What a guy. He was a very successful and powerful man, and he represented the values of his time. I think a lot of history that we're taught helps us to think, or encourages us to think that it's better. And of course, I mean, I've had education, I had jobs that were not open to my parents, and certainly not to my grandparents, and healthcare, lots of things that are actually better. But to see it in a spectrum, like of maybe the last 500 or 600 years and where we are in that journey, it hasn't been resolved. We're just on that journey.
So, day 2. The last day of the conference, the last day of our exhibition is done. And I had a brilliant time.
It was so good.
I mean, yesterday was amazing and today was amazing. What was your best bit?
My best bit was that it wasn't too nerdy.
Yeah.
Like, I'd put out this long sheet of paper with like paragraphs after paragraphs of text on Indian history and British history in 1857, as obscure as it gets in this context. And I'm like, after we set everything up, I'm like, Katrina, is this too nerdy?
And I'm like, no. But of course, I'm literally the worst person to ask if something is too nerdy, because I'm a super nerd.
But turned out you were right. I think the way people interacted with it, they saw potential, they thought about their own stories.
Yeah.
The GCSE one in particular, I met a lot of people who did their GCSEs, and they were people of color. They were from the Museum Detox group. I'm so happy Museum Detox group people came and saw HistorySpeak and interacted with it. And a lot of them were in their 20s, so they had done their GCSEs. And when I showed them that book, they were like, oh my God, we never saw this before. All we learned was World War II and the Tudors.
Let's not miss the Tudors, right?
They don't
let's not jump all over it, because the Tudors are amazing. However, I understand that there are other periods of history that other people might enjoy more. I don't know why, but maybe.
So they were really excited that book even exists right now. And I know that we're critiquing that book, but it is a brilliant book. I mean, kudos to AQA for actually publishing it.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I mean, as I sort of said today a lot, that in setting up this comparison, we are not looking to create a value judgment. And I think that that's important moving forward, that this, while we're comparing and contrasting different historical narratives, the most important thing to take away from it is that none of them are wrong.
Exactly.
And what's the most clear thing to me is that for far too long we have allowed, I think, history to be presented as almost science, that there is a right and a wrong, and that is even in its dissemination. And that is incredibly reductive and problematic. So in putting together these narratives, we aren't saying that one is true and one is false. We aren't instilling that value judgment. But history, when disseminated, is nationalistic. It has elements of propaganda. As you said, it's state-sanctioned, particularly on a GCSE or secondary school curriculum. These are state-sanctioned texts, and there is always going to be an element to which they have a national narrative behind them. That's not necessarily, and frequently isn't, a negative thing. But at the same time, it is important, I think, to highlight that national narratives differ, unsurprisingly, by nation. And there is the interesting and powerful and evocative and, I think, useful thing to show to students.
Absolutely. I think the word interesting is key over here. I think a lot of people enjoyed looking at the other point of view. And because, like you rightly said, there's no value judgment over here. And when you read the text, and we got that feedback from a lot of people who interacted with the text, that you can't say what is right or wrong. You can have an opinion on some of the language that is used, and you can be like, this is a bit off, maybe this word shouldn't be used, or why have they used this word, they're trying to underplay it. You can have all those analysis of the language, but ultimately you can't say one text is right and one text is wrong. So there is no value judgment. But the best part for me was that people are interested in seeing that other point of view.
As a first-time attender of the Museums Association conference, it has been a truly affirming experience to be in the presence of people who care so very much about heritage and the stories of history, whether they are national or local or based upon the intersections in which people exist. And I can't thank you enough for letting me come with you.
I couldn't think of anyone better to do this with, so
yay! And hopefully, we have plans that we are going to work on this more. Now, we're not going to set down in stone right now what those plans are, because quite frankly, they go in about 85 different directions. But we will be updating through the Twitter hashtag, hashtag HistorySpeak, all one word. We will also be updating the Instagram, which is HistorySpeak, unsurprisingly, and we will probably, no doubt, be having updates on our personal social medias, which will be linked below this video.
I'd like to give a shout out to Festival of Change. This is a Museums Association initiative. It's only 2 years old, but it is amazing. It's a ground up movement. So museums, like in any conference, you have a lot of directors, a lot of senior management talking about interesting things that they're doing in their museums, how they want to change them. And as junior members of a particular sector, you go there, you listen to experts, and you come back, but you feel like, okay, I've got to get up there before I can actually feel any of the change or make any of the change. Festival of Change is a ground up movement, which is amazing. And this year the theme was dissent, which is why we got to participate, because views are not inherently dissentive. They're made dissentive by their context, and by bringing the Indian textbook into Britain, that textbook became an object of dissent. So, and vice versa, if I take the British textbook back to India, it will then become an object of dissent over there. So that's how we got into the Festival of Change. Check out Festival of Change, because the other participants who were with us were so privileged to be included in that group.
So I will also be leaving links to Festival of Change, the Museums Association. Check all of that out. We also have calls to action. So through our various sites, I'll be leaving, we've got a GoFundMe, but on that GoFundMe there's going to be information. So if you are out there and you have access to textbooks from English-speaking nations who have a secondary education programme that focus on 20 20th century history, we would like you to send those books to our PO box, which will be on the GoFundMe page, but also I will link the PO box. This is going to be a big description box. Yeah. So please do check the description box, get in touch about HistorySpeak, about this video, and also if you do have those books or you know somebody who has those books, we don't care if they're modern, we want as far back as they go dealing with this history. We want to create a collection that spreads across nation and through time, back and forwards. Yes. And we are looking forward to putting this collection together in a physical way now that we have a potential place to store it.
Absolutely.
Where it can be used and engaged with by people. So keep following us to find out more about what we're doing with HistorySpeak, because I have high hopes that it's going to go far.
Great.
So thank you for letting me make this video for my channel. Thank you for inviting me to this. And we will see you guys all later. And I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like. Please also click the subscribe button and click the bell icon next to it so you know when I've next uploaded. As I said, so much information in the description box, so check that out. I do hope, we both hope, that you're going to have a great day, whatever you're doing. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. And you, when you're next on my channel, you look forward to seeing them all. Absolutely. When that happens. But for now, I hope you take care. Bye-bye for now. Bye. Bye.